everyone, this is Editing Tracy. I was about to present you with a video that my good friend Brian from the Front Porch Conservative and I did over on Rumble. If you want to join me over there, I'll link my Rumble channel down below. But we did a live stream over there, and the subject of our live streams were Tiffany Henyard and Fani Willis. Since they're kind of corrupt politicians, I thought it would be good to handle those. I don't normally get overly political on this channel, but I'm about to today because I'm going to release that to you as in video form rather than live stream form. So there will be an abrupt ending, just to let you know. But while I was editing, more news about both the subjects of this conversation dropped. So I wanted to let you know that I am up to date, but some of the information we talk about in this, it will be inconclusive because at the time we recorded it, there was no conclusion. So let's talk about Super Mayor Tiffany Henyard. Not only has she now been accused by her own town council, and they wanted to put out an investigation on her, which she vetoed, and now they've got to go back and veto. In the last 18 hours, three former city employees, that of Dolton Village and Thornton Township, are now suing her for wrongful termination and sexual harassment. So this plot just thickens. Now, we all know that when she was elected in 2021, she cleaned house and brought in her own people, which is not unusual when a candidate takes over an incumbent's office. They often clean house, but that is usually certain positions like cabinet positions, advisory positions, things that are very, very close to the inner circle. But what she did was fire people like accountants, controllers, and a building and a construction inspector, which, as we all know, she replaced with a convicted sex offender. So these are positions that are not normally replaced by an administration, ones that may have been there a long time, just like you have people working in the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. that have been there through 6 or 7 presidents, literally. Now, I'm not saying that's okay, but these are people that work in like the government accounting office, that work for the Department of Education, kind of more paper pusher positions that usually stay no matter who the president is, whereas the president will definitely replace the cabinet members and things of the advisories, just like you would in any political state, but they would not fire an accountant unless the accountant did something egregious. So she's being sued by these former employees, and I will continue to follow that as well. Fani Willis. We know that Fani Willis, who is the prosecutor that brought 28 charges of racketeering against President Trump for election interference, has been on trial herself because she had a long-term relationship with Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor she hired for the Trump case, and it may have been a conflict of interest and nepotism at its finest. Now, I go more into the details of what's happening there in the upcoming live video that you're about to watch, but let's just say that two things happened. Scott McAfee, he is the judge, he has just shot down 6 of the charges against President Trump, saying they had no basis, even though if they could be proven, they would be criminal acts, but based on what he was accused of, there was no standing for them to actually remain as part. So now we're down to 22 counts. And just this morning, he declared that her hiring of Nathan Wade, with whom she had a personal relationship, an intimate relationship with, was a tragic lapse in judgment. It does not automatically disqualify her from trying the case, but he had one stipulation, that either Nathan Wade goes or she goes. Somebody has to step down. So it's going to be up, probably not to her, it's going to be up to the government of Fulton County, Georgia, to decide which one goes. Now, if they send Wade along, they've got Fani Willis to continue trying to prosecute the case, and they'll have to hire another special prosecutor, special investigator. However, if they do let her go, they pretty much disqualified the entire DA's office of Fulton County from prosecuting former President Trump, and it will have to be farmed out to another county who may or may not want to prosecute it. So it depends on how much they want to push this narrative, how political this prosecution actually is, which, if you know my opinion, you know I pretty much say it's all political prosecution. Many candidates have done this very thing, even since I've been voting. So, yeah. Trump's defense team, I'm sure, will have some sort of appeal or some other thing coming up. And we'll see how this goes. But this pretty much, I think, puts the brakes on this case enough. Either it's going to completely fall apart, or there's no way it's going to be tried until after the election. And then we'll see what happens. But anyway, those are the updates. And now I'm going to get back to the video, and I hope you enjoy it. And thank you so much. And like I said, it will be an abrupt ending because it was a live stream. But until next time, Kito and Krime out. Everyone, I'm Tracy from Kito and Krime. I'm normally a YouTuber with just duplicates from my YouTube channel coming over here to Rumble, but I'm now going to focus a lot more attention on Rumble. And as such, this is my very first live stream, so I'm just trying to get the technical aspects of it worked out. So hopefully I'm live here, but if not, then you will definitely be getting a recorded version of this later, and hopefully I'll do better next time. I'm with my good friend who's a Rumble veteran, Brian Trippett from the Front Porch Conservative. We might actually have our good friend Brentley from Dangerous Reddit joining us as well, but we will soon see. And so with that being said, we're going to dive into, first of all, who am I? Well, I am Tracy, as I said, from Kito and Krime. Normally, I do true crime, history, and horror movie reviews specifically. That is my niche. But over here on Rumble, since there is practically no censorship, I'm going to jump into the world of politics over here as well. I don't do that on YouTube for fear of the big hammer coming down on us. Brian is brave enough to do politics over on YouTube, and he thankfully has never had the hammer come down on him, but knowing my luck, it would happen. So,
well, I don't know if it's I'm brave or I'm just crazy. Hello, everybody out there, or in the spirit of my hostess, howdy, y'all. My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. I've got a little channel on YouTube. I got a little channel on Rumble, and occasionally I post things on Twitter. And mostly my gig is politics and culture. These days, there's a lot of politics. So, yeah, you're shaking your head. Oh, yeah, it's a lot of politics. So I'm got a going little concern of a channel. I am within shouting distance of getting monetized on YouTube. So if you're not a sub to my channel, please give me a sub. I genuinely appreciate it. But aside from that, Tracy's one of my favorite people in general and on the internet in particular. So we're going to sit around and try and solve all the world's problems, as we say in my neck of the woods. And even if we don't solve all the problems of the world, we will have fun doing it. So strap in, y'all. It's going to be a good time.
Absolutely. Brian and I, when we met by virtue of another internet personality by the name of Mike Harlow, and we both had we're kind of from opposite gamuts of the political sphere. I think Brian, you've always been more on the right leaning side of things. I have made what I consider a heroine's journey from being very liberal. I was president of College Democrats of America in college. I founded a chapter at a very conservative college, and have now made the journey to where I am also now on the right side of things. So, and I mean that both literally and figuratively. And it's amazing how many wonderful people I have met since I've kind of crossed over. Not that there's not good people on the left too, but the left, as it goes further left, is leaving more and more people behind. And I think you're going to find more and more people like me that are kind of disenchanted liberals come over to this side.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I've been commenting on it now for a while, not just on my channels, but also to anybody who'll hear me, is that we are entering a very interesting period politically and intellectually, in that you've got people who are coming to what I commonly call the space. And you got them coming from all directions. You got them coming from the geopolitical. You got them coming from the economic. You got them coming from the walkaway movement. You got them coming from the free speech crowd. You got them coming from the nerd space. You got them all getting together. And as they realize they're standing with people they otherwise normally would never stand around with, they're like, well, how'd you get here? Well, I know why I'm here. What are you doing here? And they're all realizing the more they start talking, they're like, hey, we agree on a whole lot more than we ever disagreed about. Why didn't we do this sooner? And there's a growing political force in this country that, if it's applied correctly and used properly, could make a lot of change in the coming years, and healthy change, I would argue, which is long overdue. So we'll see what happens. But in the meanwhile, it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of bumpy ride, let's talk about our very first topic.
All right.
Fani Willis.
Oh,
and
God.
What's going over in Atlanta. Big news. Big news just came down that Judge Scott McAfee, who is the same judge that's overseeing her disqualification hearing, has just eliminated 6 charges from Trump's dossier of charges. Based on the fact that the prosecution did not prove that public official pledges and their specifications were not violated. Basically, they were saying that he did these things by virtue of causing public officials to not fulfill their requirements, and the judge saw no evidence of that. So everything right up into that infamous phone call where he said, I need to find 11,960 some odd votes, has been stricken and is no longer part of the case. What do you think about that, Brian?
I will give this judge a lot of credit. I don't know a lot about him beyond what I've.
He's definitely left leaning. I mean, that's pretty.
But so far, he's down the middle. I mean, I give him that. Like I said, I don't know that much about him beyond the whole Fani Willis, Nathan Wade thing, which, I refer to them both lovingly as Drama Mama and Loverboy. Which, feel free to use it. I just give you credit on it. But yeah, Drama Mama and Loverboy are a pair. But this judge, to his credit, has been pretty much down the middle. And the fact that these charges were struck, I'm not necessarily surprised. I've had, viewers and listeners on my channel say, oh, this is the strongest of the cases. I profoundly disagree with this because, okay, RICO statute is pretty straightforward as far as what it is. And basically, you're collaborating together, to do harm to the public. Well, I don't see how you jump from I'm exercising my right to free speech to protest the results of an election, and you somehow make the claim we're collaborating to undo the results of an election simply because we protest the result and we contest the result. There's a big difference of those two things. So I'm not necessarily surprised the charges got struck. Now I've got to see what's still left. Right. Now that's gonna be interesting. But the other part of it is,
when there's something like 24 different charges, something was some like insane amount of charges.
Yeah, and the thing is, the other part of it that may happen before the end of this week is that it could very well be neither one of these two, Drama Mama or Loverboy, are going to be on this case by the time this judge is done. Because keep in mind, folks, he's still got a ruling to hand down on the question of whether or not they should both be disqualified from this case on grounds of conflict of interest. And if he does rule that one or both of them is off the case, but more particularly if it's Fani Willis, then that sort of begs the question, can her office even still prosecute this thing?
According to most legal experts, no. Fulton County would be banned from prosecuting it, meaning they would have to find another county willing to take it on. And the only, in the Atlanta metro area, you have all of the suburbs, which are essentially blue counties. And we all know this is a political prosecution. Most of them probably don't have the size or manpower to be able to prosecute. And so you have to find another county in the state of Georgia that would be willing to do it. And unfortunately for them, most of the other counties are red, conservative, Republican leaning counties, and they're probably not going to want to take it up.
Well, and I would argue it's not just a matter of resources to do it. They might have that, but there's two other questions. One, Do they have the time to do it? And more importantly, do they even want to do it? Because from everything I've heard, and again, it's not like I've got insider information here. I'm just reading the news like everybody else. Nobody wanted this case. Fani was the one that took this one up on her own starting in 2021 when she launched her investigation and everything else. And, so the question, the resources question, that probably is not a problem for these surrounding counties. But they've already got cases going on. Their prosecutors and their investigators are probably hip deep in some very serious stuff. Murder cases, rape, embezzlement, whatever. So you got that issue. And then you got the question, do you want to take this thing on? And frankly, you're going into an election year in Georgia. Now, Fani's got her own, political motivations for doing this, or maybe even financial motivations, if I'm going to be so bold as to say it. But past Fani, nobody, I don't think, wants to touch this thing. And if the judge rules that she's off the case, the way that Georgia is structured is there's some kind of a commission that the case itself would be referred to, and then they would try to determine, all right, should this be handed over to another jurisdiction? Well, if they don't hand it over to another jurisdiction, or another jurisdiction doesn't say, we'll take cleanup on aisle 4, this thing's dead.
Yep.
And it's just it, and the irony of the whole thing, all this, what's going on with Drama Mama and Loverboy, comes out of his divorce proceeding when Scott Roman, I believe is the name of the defendant in the Trump case, he gets wind of the fact that Nathan Wade is going through a divorce, and he's like, and all of a sudden out of that comes, oh yeah, he's probably fooling around with Fani, and then Roman is like, excuse me, come again with that? Ashley Merchant, the attorney for Roman, starts doing her own digging, and you know what? I agree with good logic. She may not be the best litigator in a courtroom, but when it comes to digging for dirt and research, she is top notch.
I totally agree with you. They are Trump's team in this is top notch. Absolutely. And another thing, even if he doesn't disqualify them, there's two options with that scenario. One, he can issue a certificate of appeal to the Trump team, which would allow them to go ahead and appeal the decision, right now, which would push this even further down the road. And even if he doesn't do that, there's still enough garbage here that they could still send this on up to another appeals court. So this is not happening before the election in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. But what's blown my mind over the past 2 weeks during this, just the evidentiary hearing part of the disqualification. Okay, not that I'm a lawyer, but I've associated with a bunch of them over the years, and I know them and follow them or whatever. Normally, you attribute to attorneys a certain amount of competence and intelligence. No offense to Nathan Wade, and no offense to his former law partner, Terrence Bradley, but gentlemen, no, guys, you're not exactly acquitting yourselves well here in the court of public opinion, because old Nathan looks like a hot dog whose hot dog has been sauced in one form or another. And Terrence I cannot figure him out for the life of me. I don't know if he's a scorned law partner looking for revenge, or if he's like the reluctant, I can't believe you're dragging me into this witness. I don't know what his motivations are, and the reason I'm saying that, and folks out there, if you have not followed this thing the way Tracy and I have, there's a whole series of text messages between Terrence Bradley, Nathan Wade's former law partner, and Ashley Merchant, where she's, asking him questions, and he's just volunteering information. He's not giving her an ounce of trouble.
They caught him on the hot mic saying, "Oh shit," or something to that effect, when she caught him in a lie.
Yeah, he's on the stand, and she presents him. It's either she presents him or it's Steve Saito, Trump's lawyer, presents him with the text messages, and under his breath, but just loud enough the mic caught it. You hear him go, "Oh crap," because he realizes he's like, because what's on those text messages are just damning to his whole testimony.
I agree with you. What kind of attorneys are these people that they don't know the rules of discovery, evidentiary trail? The fact you can't just delete a text message and have it be gone. They can pull that from your text message provider. It's infinitely there. They're not even good lawyers, or they're just so scared they're trying to cover their tracks and they don't care. I think it's the latter. I don't think they're necessarily bad attorneys, but
well, I'll add one more to that. I'll also argue they're just that arrogant. Maybe not so much Bradley, okay, but Nathan Wade and Fani Willis. My God, you know, I know we recently had the Oscar ceremonies, but this woman should have been at least a nomination for best actress in a dramatic performance. I mean, it was ridiculous watching her on the stand.
I got called a racist for a tweet I made, but I basically tweeted out that if Real Housewives of Atlanta or Love and Hip Hop does not cast Fani Willis, they've missed a golden opportunity.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm not a racist. It's just she reminds me of every character I've ever seen on any of those Real Housewives shows.
I'm sorry. I
don't care what color they are. And she lives in Atlanta, so where else would I put her?
I'm sorry. If I were the judge and she'd have pulled that crap in front of me, one warning. She does it one more time, I'm having the bailiff take her out in handcuffs. I mean, I would understand it if she were on the other side of the podium where Ashley Merchant was at, asking the questions. I could understand, you know, a certain amount of performative acting to try to get your witness to do what you want. I'm sorry, Fani, you're reversed this time. You're in the chair. Someone else is asking you the questions. You don't walk up on the stand and say, "I need all the copies of all the depositions right now. Just hand them to me." Mm-hmm. And then just proceed to go on and bully and just cop an attitude. I mean, if you want to be defiant, there are ways of doing it. If you want to be firm, there are ways of doing it. What she did was so over the top ridiculous. Yeah. It was almost caricature. It really was.
It was just to deflect. It was just to deflect. And let's talk about her whole argument that they took these trips. He put it on his Georgia issued credit card or Fulton County issued credit card. Mm-hmm. Her part of the trip, which why was he using a government credit card to pay for any vacations at all? Okay, but he paid for her part of it, and she said she gave him cash back for it with no receipt, no explanation except that she, does a cash back when she goes to Kroger to get that much cash. No. If you're taking out that much cash, there's going to be a record of it coming out of a safety deposit. Are you having a safety deposit box of a large withdrawal or some kind of paycheck that you had? There's no way that you're taking out $50 worth of, cash backs every time you go shopping for groceries to get that much. And if that's the case, produce those credit card receipts for us.
Yeah. I mean, there are a couple things to that. I don't know Georgia election law, but when you have a witness on the stand who says, "Yeah, I took money out of my campaign funds and held them at my house," and I'm sitting here going,
"What?
Shut up, woman! Do you not realize what you're doing to yourself right now? Shut up! Stop it with this."
If her career's not open, then I'm gonna put Atlanta in the top 5 of most corrupt cities with Chicago and Detroit. I mean, she's, it's like Kwame Kilpatrick 10.0. I mean, it's like, I'm going to put her Atlanta right now. Her career, at least as a public prosecutor, as a government lawyer, needs to be over. And I would highly be suspect if the Georgia bar does not pull her license as well.
Yeah, because
for all of them.
Yeah, she's on the stand. I mean, there's just blatant perjury at various points in this. So, I mean, she gets past that statement, and then she's like, "Well, I keep cash in my house." Now, you and I both grew up in the South. We both live in the South. Mm-hmm. It is not uncommon for individuals in the South to keep cash or even large amounts thereof. I know of some people in my line of work, when I'm not doing this whole social media thing, that they don't trust banks, even though it's the 21st century. We are 80 or 90 years removed from the Great Depression. And,
Just an inch from going all digital anyway.
Yeah, exactly. They will not they don't have a bank account. They go to the place where the check's drawn on, they cash it, they come home with it, they keep cashing the house. I got no problem with her saying that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't even necessarily even have a problem with her saying, yeah, I sometimes keep 15,000 on my good days, I keep $15,000 in cash. Okay, fine. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
But you can't prove the source of the funds.
And now you've got your campaign funds intermingled with it, and God knows what else.
Yeah, and the emphasis is God knows what else. I mean, you can't source it. And frankly, and this goes back to my statement about, you always accord a lawyer a certain amount of credit for intelligence. Even if she weren't the district attorney of Fulton County, common sense ought to tell this woman that given that she is a representative of the bar of the state of Georgia, she's got the ethical obligation that if, God forbid, she ever get her hand called on it, I can prove to people where this money came from, or at least offer up a reasonable paper trail to show where it came from. She can't even do that. But the part that kills me is it just came from my sweat and blood. In other words, you're supposed to believe me just because I'm Fani Willis. Well, the question that I would have loved to have asked her is, tell me something. If you were standing up here and I were sitting there and I gave you that cock and bull story, would you tolerate that? Of course not. So why should I be expected to tolerate it from you? Now, the judge probably would have slapped me down for, harassing a witness, but the point's valid. She wouldn't let that garbage go if it were somebody else. So why should the judge be expected to just say, oh, well, of course it's Fanny. Of course she keeps $15,000 in cash and can't prove where she got it from. It's just extraordinary with these two.
At least have an explanation. I sold a car. Show us that paperwork. I sold this. I sold that. Show us the paperwork. I did contract work. Show us the PayPal or receipts, or at least a handwritten receipt or an invoice where you got cash for it. Show us something, Fanny. No one cares that you keep cash. It's just and no one's even addressing, why were they paying on a vacation? Why were you dumb enough or arrogant enough to pay for a vacation on a government credit card anyway? I wouldn't do that on my corporate card for my job, much less the government taxpayer funded card.
Exactly. I mean, and then the whole, the relationship started in November of 22 and we ended it in the summer of 23. And then to their credit, Trump's team's like, okay, so you started this in November of 22. All right, fine. They pull Nathan Wade's cell phone records. They use, a program that, is respected around the country in courtrooms everywhere. They can ping his activity, where his cell phone's at, and it's got him leaving his house in Cobb County at like 11:30 at night, shows up in the vicinity of her condo, and he's there until about 4 or 5 in the morning. Now,
that's a booty call.
Thank you. If it looks like a booty call, acts like a booty call, and does the walk of shame after he's done, it's a booty call.
The only thing message is the text message that says you up. That's the only thing, or where you at. That's the only thing that's missing from that whole scenario.
Oh, I know. I mean, it just... Yeah, it's just...
So evidently their relationship started 2019, and it was still ongoing after he was appointed. Yeah,
and I mean, I'm like you. If the Georgia bar does not remove their licenses for this, I mean, just chalk up Fulton County as one of the more corrupt political places in America. Yeah. Because, I mean, I'm sorry. This is just that whole district attorney's office is just a sinkhole of corruption. It's just terrible. And I don't know who's running against her in this election, but if she wins again, shame on you, Fulton County.
Now, I do want to give her some props. She did do an amazing job at prosecuting gang violence in Atlanta. I'm here to recognize good work when it's there. But other than that, she's been just a corrupt politically motivated politician.
Yeah. I mean, when she got elected, Nathan Wade helped head up the transition team, which is another suspicious thing.
Yeah, we won't even get into that, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's like, they stripped the whole office of anybody who'd been there for a while, used DEI standards for all intents and purposes to repopulate the office, created a reign of terror. So, Fulton County, you got a chance to do something about this election. What do y'all want to do? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And there's another electorate that has a chance to hopefully get rid of some heavy baggage, and that's over in another corrupt metropolis, the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, in a little village called Dolton and Thornton Township, where you've got one of the most corrupt mayors, I think even more corrupt than Kwame Kilpatrick of Detroit. You've got Tiffany Henyard over there. And it is so bad that she's not even hiding it anymore.
No.
Are you familiar with the case?
She is full on gangster. Ladies and gentlemen, if y'all don't know about little Miss Tiffany Henyard, if you think Fanny's bad, Tiffany makes Fanny look like a piker. I mean, I'm sorry, this woman is the 21st century version of Al Capone in government. This woman is just bad. I mean, if you want to tee it up, I'll be happy to respond to it. But yeah, I've been reading up on her in preparation for this. And folks, what Tracy's going to lay out is going to blow your mind.
Absolutely. Now, there's so much that if I teed it up, we'd be here all night watching it. But essentially, she was elected in 2021 at 37. She was the youngest mayor and the first female African-American mayor ever elected to this small village. And she actually won 2 elections, one for Thornton Township, which is an adjacent area, and one for Dolton Village, which these are 2 tiny little communities of 20,000 people each, just outside of Cook County, or they may even actually be in Cook County, which is the county that surrounds Chicago. Okay, she had been a trustee, which is essentially a town councilman, for many years. She did some good work there. And she was actually fairly active. She was the one that would call people, on their bullshit in meetings. And then she got elected to mayor, and they said something snapped in her. And she just went on full on, like Brian said, Al Capone, using public funds for lavish trips, not justifying the expenses, hiring her friends, which is it's not unusual that politicians hire people that they trust to be their staff. But it's like Brian said, she replaced longstanding government employees. These 2 villages, as I said, are mostly African American. The average income there is $27,000 a year. For those 2 combined positions, she makes $270,000 a year.
Which is more than Governor Illinois, by the way.
Exactly. And she recently passed an executive order that reduces the pay for both positions down to $20,000 to $25,000 a year if she loses an election. So if another person comes in, as long as the incumbent remains there, it remains at $270,000. Now it's down to $25,000 to prevent people from. Why would you want to run for it and have all that mess to clean up for $25,000 a year? No one's going to do that.
No.
She hired a convicted sex offender to be her code enforcement officer. She has been terrorizing members of the city council that are against her. She's been terrorizing businesses that don't donate to her campaign or support her initiatives by refusing to renew their business licenses, and they've had to go to the state. And she's been just basically using public funds to fund a charity, her re-election campaign, and has even been one young lady that is a former town councilman that led the charge against the sex offender. She actually claims that Tiffany Henyard's people shot at her house back during last summer. So it's gotten that bad. In addition, she has a private security force, which takes up approximately 25% of Dolton's police force. to be her personal bodyguards, and she pays them about 100 hours a week, mostly in overtime, to protect her, and is uh, refusing to hold herself accountable. They've had a recall vote, which she got a judge to say could not be enforced, and they are now wanting to do an investigation into everything she's been accused of, but she keeps vetoing that, so they're going to have to go back and override that veto. But what good is it going to do? They say because she has the police force in her pocket. And so now finally the FBI has launched a probe and has been talking to people, and she's been coming down on those people by refusing to renew business licenses, having them followed, and just genuinely making their life a living hell. Right out in public.
Yeah. I mean, there's a character that she went to a city council meeting dressed up as from the film New Jack City in the early 1990s. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of the name of the character, but it boggles. The drug kingpin, Nino Brown.
Right.
And literally all you got to do is Google Tiffany Henyard, and you'll see the picture and you'll be like, oh my gosh. And I was reading the story about the former township member, council member, basically woke up at 6:30 in the morning to the sound of gunshots. 2 cars belonging to, I guess, some tenants of this person's property had their cars shot up, and the press asked the ladies, like, do you think she did? Oh yeah, absolutely. One word, absolutely. I mean, under normal circumstances, I'm all about local government and everything else. This woman is just corruption on steroids.
Yeah.
It's just, I've never seen anything quite like this.
And I think it feeds into, as we were saying backstage, the whole, well, for example, it's just that whole culture in Chicagoland. And no offense to anybody that lives in Chicago, but you've had kind of a loosey-goosey relationship with corrupt politicians for most of your inception. I mean, going all the way back to when literally the Italian or the Irish mob were in power. I mean, everybody knew that Mayor Daley was a member of the Irish mob, but the difference between Daley and Henyard is the city ran efficiently under Daley. Yeah. And so no one cared. But her city's not, it's bankrupt. They're about to have 10% of their police vehicles repossessed because she didn't pay the bill. She used that money to pay off her own SUV. I mean, it's just, the city doesn't even run like it's supposed to.
Well, and more often than not, folks like me and folks like Tracy focus on towns like, or Chicago proper, for example, San Francisco, New York City, Baltimore, St. Louis. Why? Or Los Angeles, not to leave anybody out. Why do we focus on these cities? Well, frankly, they're big cities. And there was a time when these metropolises were held up to the world as a shining example of, metropolitan life. Museums and restaurants and culture, and you could walk the streets at nights and feel safe. Yeah, there was still crime. Yeah, there was still trouble, but nothing like what goes on today. And even back in those days, those cities were governed by Democrat mayors, Democrat city councils, but they also understood something. We might be members of one political party, but in the end, we've got to make sure that the streets are clean and everybody feels safe.
That's the difference between this corruption and other types of government corruption. The mob has always had, organized crime has always had a hand in governing Chicago and specifically New York City. Even Donald Trump himself has said that nothing moved, especially in his industry, unless you greased the right mob boss. And he's been very, very open about that. They controlled the unions, the Teamsters, the auto workers. They controlled all of that, and nothing got done unless you greased the right palms. Same thing in Chicago with Daley. He paid off the right people, but the city ran. New York City used to run efficiently. And now the corruption can't go hand in hand with ineptness. And now it's going hand in hand with ineptness.
Well, it's ineptness, and I would argue liberal ideology.
Yeah.
I mean, Bradley, Mayor Daley, LaGuardia back in the day. All these old style Democrat mayors, they may have been Democrats.
Mario Cuomo.
Cuomo is the governor of New York. Yeah.
Yeah.
They may have been Democrats and they may have been lefties, but they weren't so far left that they forgot their most important job. Make sure everybody stays safe, keep the city clean, make sure a business environment can thrive. Otherwise, you can't pay for the leftyism.
Yeah. That's what Trump said. You paid the right protection money.
Yeah.
Your business was protected.
Yeah.
You didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And now you've got hyper liberalism. I would probably say it's about a half a step short of communism, parading itself around as, Democrat ideology in America. You couple that with, big city governance. And I'm sorry, those things don't go. Perfect example, Buffalo, New York. Buffalo, New York is right on Lake Erie. Buffalo, New York has been getting snow in Buffalo since the beginning of time. 6, 10, 12, 18, 32, big blizzards, right? They've never had trouble with people being able to drive around the streets until this last winter, when apparently something was done. And although I don't have all the details, but I've heard this said, that changed around, how they do things and not for the better. And it just crippled Buffalo. Yeah. And I'm sitting here going, wait a minute. You guys are on Lake Erie. You guys have been dealing with snow for more years than I've been alive. And now all of a sudden you guys can't handle a 30-inch blizzard, which not to say that's insignificant. I'm not saying it is. But places like Buffalo, should be equipped to handle something like that reasonably well. Instead,
I agree.
Instead, you have woke ideological progressivism taking over the governance of these cities, and you get, someone like a Tiffany Henyard who feels entitled, is using public money for her own purpose. She hired her own stylist and put them on the township's payroll.
Yeah.
To the tune of $7,500 a month. And I'm sitting there going, really? You got to be kidding me with this woman. Just unbelievable.
That's the thing. It has become more about self-promotion. Who am I? Being an influencer.
Yeah.
Rather, that's what AOC is too. She's an influencer. She's not really a politician. Right. That's out for the goodwill of her people. It's all about self-promotion and promoting left-wing ideology. They're more concerned with DEI, trans rights, whatever else, fat acceptance, like passing that recent law in New York City that says you can't discriminate for work on the basis of body size. They added body size as a protected class, Brian.
Yeah.
And I'm a fat person, and I'm going to say bullshit. There's some things that fat people can't do.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, Anthony Cumia, one of my favorite comedians, the head of Compound Media, half jokingly checks the cockpit to see who's flying the plane before he gets on. And if it's a white guy, he's not worried about it. If he sees a woman, he gets nervous. He sees a woman of color, he gets even more nervous because he's like, did you get the job because you were really good at your job, or did you get the job because you're a diversity hire? Now, maybe that's extraordinarily cynical, maybe slightly racist and probably sexist, but in some cases, is he wrong?
No. Considering some of the recent things that have transpired at United and American, no. That is not right. I want the most qualified pilot in that cockpit. I don't care what they look like. They can be purple and have one arm. I don't care as long as they're the most qualified pilot for that to fly this plane.
Yeah,
that's all I care about.
It could be Sully Sullenberger on a walker. I don't care, just as long as Sully lands the plane correctly after he takes off. Fine.
Exactly. And they used to say you can depend on the instruments. No, not after what's coming out of Boeing. We can't really do that either. You need a qualified person,
Oh yeah. But Tiffany Henyard is just, there's always been a certain level of corruption in Chicago, which you sort of come to expect. But like I said, at least then, or at least back then, it was also understood, all right, they might be a little corrupt, but the street lights are going to work. The trash is going to get picked up.
And the
The
cops are
city's
going
going
to come to your house.
the cops are going to come to your house. Fine. I'll tolerate a little bit of corruption if you guys will just make sure I have a, a decent standard of living in the city in which I reside. You can't even do that anymore.
No, going back to what Lori Lightfoot did to Chicago. I mean,
Yeah.
she defunded the police to the tune of now
Mm-hmm.
you're lucky if you get a police officer coming to your home within 30 minutes of making a call.
Yeah.
Laws were passed and signed into law that basically said police officers are not allowed to pursue people for certain crimes, so they can do certain property related crimes and not be pursued.
Yep.
There are recently they allowed the contract to, now this is under their new mayor Brandon Johnson, they allowed their contract with a security camera company or security app that basically records gunfire and tells you where the most concentrated gunfire is in the city. And that way they could concentrate police officers there. Well, they don't have enough officers to cover that. So now they've just decided to do away with that whole system. All kinds. It's like you said, these people are not only corrupt, they're inept at their jobs. Give me an Al Capone that keeps the city safe and keeps my family and property and friends safe, and the city runs efficiently. Okay, I really don't care what he does. And I know that's terrible. In a perfect world, I want no corruption,
Exactly.
and efficient government. But it doesn't seem right now you can have. They're not mutually exclusive. You have to have. There's always going to be a level of corruption in government until we find a way to clean it out. But it has to be efficient, and we're not seeing that anywhere anymore.
No. I mean, and to me, on the other side of that, if ever there was a golden opportunity for not even necessarily Republicans, I'm just saying third party folks to come in. I asked this question of our mutual friend Brent from the Dangerous Rhetoric podcast the other night. Why is concealed carry or a more relaxed standard of owning a firearm in New York City not being pushed by those in the political minority? Because, I mean, to me, it's the perfect time to make the argument. Okay, you want to cut the police? Fine. But you better be willing to relax gun control laws in your city to allow citizens to be able to legally keep firearms in the name of protecting themselves, their family, and their property. No one's pushing it.
Because, there's so many obstacles to it. Do you know in the state of New Jersey that there's not even like a Homestead Act, like a castle doctrine? Literally, if I live in New Jersey and someone breaks into my home, the law directs me to flee. I cannot stand and defend my home and my property. And if I shoot somebody, I'm going to jail because I was supposed to flee. It's not like here in Tennessee or in your home state of West Virginia or in Texas, where if somebody breaks in my house, I can blow them away and I'll be fine. No, you have to flee.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, that's ridiculous. I'll shoot a cat if it comes on my property. What makes you think I'm not going to? No, I'm kidding. I love cats. I love dogs. I'm not shooting cats and dogs unless they really piss me off. But anyway, no, serious. I mean, no, but see that even then, even with the obstacles, to me, it's the perfect time to push it because it's like, look, guys, you cannot have it both ways. You can't sit there on the one hand and say, we're going to cut the police or we're going to cut back on this program that allows for public safety or this or this or this, and then not allow the citizens to be able to protect themselves. Because if it's going to take double the amount of time for a police officer to respond to your call, or even if they do respond, by that point, the crime can be perpetrated. And what is the average citizen going to do? And if they do use a firearm under current laws, what are you going to do? Arrest them?
Yeah.
So not only did you fail to protect them through the police department of the city in which they reside and pay taxes, now you're going to arrest them for supposedly illegal possession of a firearm. Is that what you're going to do?
I'm going to tell you a story. Way back in my younger days,
which was just a few years ago.
One of my my ex-partner's was a retired New York City police officer.
Ooh.
We dated for 10 years, and he would tell me stories of the old police force. He was a police officer in the 80s. And he said that at that time in New York, the New York City Police Department was one of the most well-funded street gangs that has ever lived, because he said there was massive, massive corruption.
I believe that.
But he said that the city ran, just like we were talking about. But he said that there was nothing. And he worked at a certain precinct that got busted. I won't go into that, but got busted in the late 80s for rampant corruption. All the upper brass got removed. But he said when he worked at that precinct, sometimes he would just open his locker and there would be a paper bag there filled with cash. That's how corrupt it was. But dang. He said that he went to a local bodega. It was owned, this is in the Bronx. It was owned by a Korean gentleman. And he said that my ex is Puerto Rican. So he brought up race a lot, because he said that a lot of people in the country don't realize how the races interact with each other in New York City. He said the Puerto Ricans and African Americans do not get along. The blacks, African Americans and Asians typically don't get along. Nobody none of the ethnic minorities really like white people. He said that's just how things are in New York, at least when he was growing up. So he said a Puerto Rican police officer, goes into this Korean-owned bodega, and he said the gentleman was just flaming mad because he had been robbed. And he said, I paid, and he named off one of my ex's superiors that worked at that specific precinct. I paid him X amount of dollars, and now I've been robbed. And so David simply said, okay, I'm going to check into this for you. He said he got a cup of coffee. He went and he told his superior what happened. Well, he said a week later, he and that superior escorted the person that robbed his bodega back into his store and had him pay for the merchandise he stole and apologize to the guy. He said that's how efficient it ran, because he paid protection money and he was robbed.
Yeah.
And he said he doesn't know how his superior got that guy so specifically. He said, I will tell you that the Italian mob was probably involved, because some of that protection money goes to them in certain neighborhoods.
Exactly.
And he said, but they found him, and he let them know he got his money's worth.
Good. See, like I say, a little bit of corruption. Should you have it? No. In an ideal world, not so much. But on the other hand, you got to do something to grease the gears. Yeah. Like it or not, you got to do it.
I was a line cook for many years when I was, in my 20s. And I worked for
just a few years ago, folks.
that came from New York. And he said that when he opened up a new restaurant on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and he said that he had already called out to get quotes from meat suppliers, vegetable suppliers, the whole 9 yards. And he said 2 days after he had been there, he said the maitre d' came in and said, Chef, you've got a visitor. And so he went up front, and there was these two very well-dressed guys, and they're like, hey, we're with named a meat company. We're your meat and dairy supplier. And he goes, oh, no, I haven't chosen one yet. I've got some. Do you want? He goes, no. They go, no. We are your meat and dairy supplier.
Okay.
And he got what they were saying. He said they were two well-dressed Irishmen. And he goes, I got what they were saying. And so he said, okay. And so they gave them the price list. He said it was very fair prices.
Yeah.
And the deliveries ran on time. The delivery people were very polite and very professional. He never had any problem. But he was in their territory, and therefore they were his meat and dairy supplier.
Yep.
No questions asked.
None. Oh my goodness.
He said the same for waste management. He said you could pretty much buy your fruits and vegetables wherever you wanted, but he goes meat, dairy, and waste management, that they would be the ones to empty your dumpsters and empty your grease traps.
Absolutely. I mean, and like I say, there's a certain amount of shall we say, greasing the palm that's going to happen. It's not a good thing, but it's a reality, and it works and it makes things go. But now it's reached the point. Not only are people greasing palms, they're just not even taking care of the stuff to make it run efficiency.
Yep.
And I mean, I've said before, and I'll say it again. I mean, it's not going to happen this election. It's not going to happen in the next municipal election. But sooner or later, you're going to see cities like New York City, Chicago, others. They're not necessarily going to go Republican, but they're going to go, I will argue, purple.
Purple.
And,
When I say purple, there's going to be enough moderates and
yeah.
right-leaning people that have been forced right
Yeah.
by this Overton window. And you're going to see, when I say it's not, they're going to vote more conservative and more moderate because Republicans genuinely represent that. You're going to see more of them, but you're also going to see more Democrats coming back towards center.
Exactly.
If they're smart and want to keep their office.
Exactly. And it's just going to happen because even the most strident liberal or progressive is going to get a belly full of rats in their garbage, no police to protect them when someone comes to rob them,
illegal migrants all over the place.
Illegal migrants all over the place. I mean, Chicago is about to boil over right now.
Yeah, Brandon Johnson has had 2 anxiety attacks during press conferences because of the migrant problem. They don't have anywhere to put them. Denver is having some sort of breakdown right now too because they're being bused to all these sanctuary cities because that's where they get all the benefits. And red states like yours and mine, we don't give them shit, so they don't come here.
Yeah. I mean, if by the way, if you're an illegal migrant, first of all, we love you. Second of all,
go home and come back legally.
Go home, come back legally. But number 3, if you ain't gonna do number 2, understand this: you show up in certain states in America, and we ain't gonna give you jack shit except for a hard time until you finally do go back home and decide to come back legally. Yeah. Now, bless your heart. We get it. You're coming here for a better life. We understand that, but there's rules. So, just saying.
Oh, and you notice now that Texas has locked down the southern border. All those entries have shifted to California. Not so much Arizona, because Arizona is also doing some tightening, I believe, down there. But they're just coming through California.
And keep your eyes on New Mexico, because if they ain't coming through California, they'll come through New Mexico. So very, very sad situations. Very sad situations.
And it's not that I don't love people. I do, but we're having an overabundance of the wrong types of people. And I'm not talking about race or religion or anything like that. I'm talking about we're having a whole lot of criminal people where basically these countries like Venezuela, half their gang or 20% of their gang population has shifted to the United States. That's a nice little stat they don't give you to chew on because their government's pretty much encouraging them to go to the United States because they don't want them.
Well, I mean...
And it was one of them that murdered Lincoln Riley.
Yeah. I was about to say, I mean, if folks out there maybe that are watching this, maybe you don't follow politics that closely and you're trying to figure out, how to understand the illegal immigration debate in this country, I'll give you 2 words that'll crystallize in your mind. Laken Riley. Laken Riley was killed by a gentleman from Venezuela who had crossed the border illegally in 2022, had committed 2 crimes, one in New York City and one in the state of Georgia somewhere, some town. And that was between when he crossed the border and the murder of Laken Riley. And governments did not communicate with each other. And he was in Rome, Georgia, and murdered this young lady.
Or Athens, Georgia.
Athens, excuse me. Thank you. Athens, Georgia.
Where the University of Georgia is.
And
she was a nursing student at the university.
And she was out for a morning run, doing nothing more than just going out to exercise. And this guy severely, I mean, we do not have the details, or at least it's not been released in the press that I've seen, severely beat and killed this young lady.
And probably sexually assaulted her, though we don't have any. But she fought back. She didn't just take it. She fought
Yeah.
back, and he caved her skull in with a blunt object, people.
Yeah.
It takes an evil person to do that.
And he
If
has
you're not being attacked.
And he has two brothers. Both of them have crossed into the United States, and one of them, like Tracy said, is a member of a Venezuelan gang. I mean, this reminds me to a certain extent. Do you remember the Mariano boat lift in the late 70s, early 80s? Does that ring a bell to you by name? No. Basically what happened was Fidel Castro, the legendary communist leader of Cuba, turned loose the prisons and the mental hospitals and set them adrift on boats for the 80 miles.
And ended up in Florida.
Yep, in Florida. Yeah. The great Mariano boat lift is what's referred to. And we took them in, and we're doing the same. And get ready, folks. Keep your eyes on Haiti. I hate to tell you this, but keep your eyes on Haiti, because it would not surprise me if you've got a flood of people coming up out of Haiti trying to land on the shores of Florida or other places. So just saying.
Joe Biden's never going to do it, but Trump needs to become just like Obama. People don't remember. People will deny it until their dying breath. But Obama was deporter in chief. Mm-hmm. He deported more illegal aliens than any other president in the last 12 years before him.
Yep.
Trump needs to about double his record of deportation.
Yep.
I agree with our friend Brentley, who's normally here with us. If you commit an assault crime like the guy that hit Lincoln Riley, and you were Lincoln Riley, and it's proven that you're an illegal immigrant, I think execution, just execution, just kill you. You're done.
Which end of the wood chipper do you want to go in first? Head or feet?
Exactly. And you can call me any name you want to out there. I stand by that.
I have not a problem with capital punishment. Never have. I mean, and not that I'm trying to swerve it to that direction, but I mean, people are, oh, well, how do you know that you're not going to execute the wrong person? You don't know that beyond 100% certainty. On the other hand, it's so rare when it happens. I would much rather have the deterrent with the possibility of the occasional mistake to not have it, so we can be 100% perfect and allow people to keep on living that, from my perspective, don't deserve to. Yeah.
And these people need to be sent back, and we need to close the border. There's a process.
Yep.
Okay. The initial argument that leftists say, we all came here illegally. Not really.
No.
The people that came here that were the original founders of America, they came here legally by the standards of the day.
By charters of their kings and queens.
They came here legally by immigration laws that were established at that time by the imperial powers that had conquered this land. Mm-hmm. They came here legally.
Yep.
And I'm from a old Scotch-Irish family. People talk about things like that. When my family went through Ellis Island, when James O'Barkley came through Ellis Island, they changed his name to Barkley because people didn't like Irish and his name sounded too Irish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, I also don't have a problem with the idea of freezing immigration, because there have been periods in American history where, okay, we've opened the doors and then we shut them for a while. Why? Because we need to let some time go by and let this group of immigrants assimilate to American life, take on the culture, take on the understanding of why America is what it is. Okay, then let a period of time. I mean, there was a period, if I remember correctly, from like 1917 maybe to like 1945, we didn't let anybody in. You didn't get into the United States.
We need to close it down, either deport a lot of these illegals or have a process where they become naturalized and assimilated in a peaceful way, get them off the public dole and get them working, or get them out of here. Those are our two. And I would prefer getting them out of here, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean,
at least the criminal element.
And I've heard a compromise that I could get down with. And I understand the argument. I mean, look, you've got millions of people here. They have been here for years. They are paying taxes. They now have children. Those children may have children of their own.
I don't have a problem with those people. I'm talking the people that have come in 10 years. No. I'm talking about the ones that are flooding over now and in the last 18 months.
I agree with you. And the compromise that I heard was like, okay, fine. Those people want a path to citizenship. Cool. On one condition, you can't vote for 20 years. State, federal elections, you cannot vote at all.
Well, it's unconstitutional for them to vote right now in federal unless the Biden administration tries to change that.
Yeah,
exactly. But it would have to, a constitutional convention is not an easy thing to do. So I don't think we have to worry about that for the next 20 years. But it is, some municipalities have tried, like New York, have tried to allow them to vote in local elections, but it has been stricken down twice.
Yep.
By a federal court, thank God.
Yep. And yes, I mean, but yeah, the illegals that are here in the past 36 months, you're gone. You are gone. Goodbye. You're out of here.
Yeah.
No, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. There's the fence. We're going to put you on the other side of it. Bye.
Right. And they need to come in. If they're applying for sanctuary, they need to come. They don't just need to flood across the Rio Grande through open borders. They need to have to stop at a way station, tell the person why they're here, why they fear for their life, and that story needs to be checked out, or they need to be held, and they need to be held until that story checks out.
Yeah.
Or sent back across.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's not just people coming in from Mexico, South and Central and South America. We've got people coming in from Muslim countries in the Middle East. We've got Chinese coming in. Those are the people that scare me the most.
Yeah.
And you can call me a xenophobe all you want, but Islam, at least radical Islam, is a very dangerous religion.
Yep.
And with all the turmoil in the Middle East, we're going to start seeing some terrorist activity here, and it scares me.
Yeah, that's the truly frightening part. I agree totally. Agree. Well, what else is on your menu of topical items tonight?
Well, that was pretty much everything. I think we've done a good job for my first stream. What do y'all think?
I think she's done very well. Give it up for Miss Tracy. There you go, folks.
And if you join me, thank you so much. I'll be doing this more regularly. I'll be an expert at it, and you won't have some dumbass looking into the camera. Is this live? Next time.
No, that's what gives the show charm. It's like, is this thing working?
But everyone, if you want to find me, I'm also over on YouTube. If you want to see some of, and also here on Rumble, I've got lots of my true crime and stuff here. I've also got a lot of videos on the Tiffany Henyard case here and on YouTube. Check those out. Definitely check out Brian. Brian, plug your channels.
Thank you, ma'am. I am on YouTube. I am on Rumble. You can find me at the Front Porch Conservative on both places. You can find me on Twitter at the Front Porch C1. So just check that out right there. And usually I've got 3 or 4 videos a week and a live stream on the weekends I do called Front Porch Brunch. And you just never know where you're going to find me because I've got friends like this lovely lady right over there. By all means, give her a sub, give her a follow, check out her work. She's one of my dearest friends here, and one of these days we'll all get together and it's going to be one hell of a party.
Exactly.
Cops might get called, and I don't know what happens after that. It's like
it'll take them too long to get there. No, we live in red states. They'll be right here.
It's like, hey, where's the shine? Here's the jar. There you go, baby. So,
all right, everyone. Thank you so much. And until next time, Kito and
Bye.
Krime. Out.
All right.